It was supposed to be just another calm summer evening in suburban Minnesota. The kind where porch lights flicker lazily, kids ride bikes past trimmed lawns, and families sit down to watch the 9 o'clock news. But behind one closed door in Brooklyn Park, 2 state legislators were about to be gunned down in cold blood by a man dressed like the very people meant to protect them. At 8:42 p.m., 2 muffled gunshots shattered the quiet. Neighbors assumed it was fireworks. After all, it was June. But within minutes, first responders found Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark lying in their dining room, lifeless, shot execution style. No signs of forced entry, no struggle, just clean, clinical murder. And hours earlier, across town, another attack had unfolded, this time in Champlin, where State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette were ambushed in their home. 9 bullets hit John. 8 struck Yvette. They barely survived. The attacker? A man with a badge, a uniform, a gun, but he wasn't a cop. His name, Vance Luther Boelter. And what he did next would send shockwaves across America.
Minnesota, where a man is in custody accused of a political assassination. Police believe that Vance Boelter is responsible for killing a state lawmaker and her husband inside their home.
The FBI and Minnesota authorities are searching for this man, 57-year-old Vance Luther Boelter. They say this security camera image was captured just a few hours after he allegedly shot 2 state lawmakers.
Defending colleague, Speaker Melissa Hortman, and her husband Mark were shot and killed early this morning in what appears to be a politically motivated assassination.
June 14th, 2025. At approximately 5:17 a.m., a 911 call crackled in from the Champlin neighborhood. A male voice, faint and raspy, gasped, "We've been shot. Help us." When police arrived, they found a scene ripped straight out of a nightmare. Blood pooled across the hardwood floor. Glass shards glinted in the early morning light. State Senator John Hoffman, barely breathing, was found slumped beside the couch. His wife Yvette was unconscious, her pulse weak. The entry wound pattern suggested close-range shots, almost point-blank. But there was no sign of robbery, no valuables missing, nothing stolen, just a methodical attempt to eliminate. As EMTs raced them to the trauma unit, investigators began pulling surveillance footage from the neighborhood. What they found was chilling. A car rigged with flashing lights and a figure in a full law enforcement uniform calmly walking toward the house with a manila folder in hand. He looked like he belonged there. That was the trap. Hours later, officers would identify the car's owner as Vance Boelter, a former private security CEO with a history of political affiliations and grievances. While Hoffman and Yvette clung to life, Boelter was already making his next move. By evening, he drove across town to the home of Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman. Mark and Melissa had just finished dinner. Their daughter had left an hour earlier. They were winding down, watching television, completely unaware of the storm headed their way. Doorbell rings. Melissa opens the door to a clean-shaven man in a dark uniform, badge glinting under the porch light. "Ma'am, there's been an incident in your district. I need you to verify." Before she could respond, he pulled a suppressed pistol and shot her in the chest. Mark stood up from the living room, yelling, confused. One more shot. Silence. Security footage from a neighbor's Ring camera showed the man entering and leaving within 90 seconds. No hesitation, no panic, pure precision. That was Boelter's signature. He didn't come to scare. He came to end. Who was Vance Boelter? To understand the terror that unfolded, you have to understand the man behind the mask. Vance Luther Boelter wasn't a random name plucked from obscurity. He had a past, one that was bizarre, layered, and riddled with contradictions. On paper, he looked like a man of many talents. A former law enforcement consultant, the CEO of a private security company, and even a lay preacher. But underneath the titles lay something far more dangerous: obsession. He had once served briefly on Governor Walz's Workforce Development Board, a respectable position, but left after clashing over political issues. In conservative online circles, he started making waves as a vocal opponent of abortion rights, gun control laws, and LGBTQ protections. Slowly, his rhetoric became more militant. Investigators uncovered private journals, Reddit posts, and Telegram chats where Boelter ranted about deep state operatives and traitors inside the legislature. He viewed himself as a soldier in a one-man war against a corrupted government. But what tipped the scales from words to bloodshed? 2 months before the attack, Boelter had legally purchased a used Crown Victoria. He modified it with sirens, dashboard cams, and internal partitions to resemble a squad car. Friends noticed he'd started wearing black tactical gear everywhere, even to the grocery store. Nobody reported it. To most, he was just an eccentric. To some, a patriot. But no one imagined he would soon become Minnesota's most feared domestic terrorist. The manifesto and the list. The most chilling discovery came 3 days after Boelter's arrest. Tucked inside a hidden compartment in his garage was a 96-page typed document titled Operation Rescind. It wasn't just a diary. It was a blueprint, a mission statement, a manifesto. In it, Boelter outlined his justification for the murders. He believed the government had been infiltrated by cultural saboteurs, and that his duty, his God-given duty, was to reset the balance. The manifesto was laced with Bible verses, obscure military jargon, and passages lifted from 1980s anti-government literature. But what truly alarmed authorities was the list attached to the final pages. Boelter had named 70 individuals across multiple states: politicians, judges, school board members, activists. Each name came with photographs, home addresses, and in some cases, floor plans. Under each name were handwritten notes like Priority Alpha, Late Stage, or Collateral Risk. Melissa Hortman was listed as Stage 1. John Hoffman was Beta Phase. Boelter wasn't improvising, he was executing. The manifesto also revealed a frightening detail. He believed he wouldn't be stopped, that either he would die a martyr or the country would rise up behind him. He called it the sovereign turn. He was wrong. The 43-hour manhunt. Once the dots connected and Boelter's name hit the law enforcement database, it triggered an immediate all-agency alert. Federal marshals, ATF, FBI, local SWAT all scrambled to locate a man now being called the most dangerous lone wolf domestic terrorist since Timothy McVeigh. Boelter's car was discovered abandoned 17 miles north of Minneapolis in a wooded area near Elk River. A local hunter had reported it. Inside the trunk were latex gloves, multiple burner phones, 3 sets of fake IDs, and a map of the Twin Cities with pins marking several high-profile residences. But no sign of Boelter himself. Drones, helicopters, and K-9 units swept the area. Police canvassed shelters, bus stations, small motels. Interviews with neighbors and ex-employees revealed he had once owned a remote cabin in Pine County. By hour 28, authorities were losing confidence. National media had broken the story. The governor ordered curfews. At hour 43, a thermal drone picked up movement near a frozen creek just outside Pine City. A team moved in. They found Boelter in full tactical gear, lying prone in the snow, rifle aimed at a hiking trail, waiting. For whom? No one knows. He didn't resist. He didn't speak. He just smiled. Trial by fire. The courtroom war. The trial began on September the 3rd, 2025, under the tightest security Minnesota had ever seen. Boelter was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of attempted murder, multiple weapons charges, and federal terrorism-related offenses. Courtroom 5B in Minneapolis transformed into a battleground, not just of law, but of ideology. Protesters surrounded the courthouse. Some called Boelter a monster. Others, disturbingly, hailed him as a hero. Boelter chose to represent himself. That decision turned the trial into theater. He quoted scripture. He questioned politicians. He treated the jury like his final audience. But the evidence was overwhelming. Ballistics, surveillance, digital footprints, and above all, the manifesto. The most damning moment came when John Hoffman, still recovering, took the stand. His voice cracked. He described the moment he locked eyes with Boelter seconds before the first shot. "He didn't hate me as a person," Hoffman said. "He hated what I stood for." On October 27th, the jury deliberated for just 4 hours. Guilty, on all counts. Boelter showed no emotion. The judge gave him life without parole. But the story wasn't over. What Boelter left behind. The aftermath of Vance Boelter's crimes rippled far beyond the courtroom. Within weeks, dozens of lawmakers across the country reported threats that used phrases taken directly from Boelter's manifesto. Some were copycats, others were just inspired. The FBI launched Operation Dismantle, a nationwide crackdown on militia networks and radical chat groups where Boelter had once been active. Security budgets in state capitals tripled. Lawmakers began wearing panic buttons. Schools reviewed visitor policies. Faith in the safety of elected officials had shattered. But amid the fear, there was also resolve. Yvette Hortman recovered and launched a non-profit to help protect public officials from domestic threats. Melissa Hortman's daughter delivered a TED Talk on democracy's fragility that went viral. The phrase, "Never again Minnesota," became a national call to vigilance. Boelter's name faded from headlines, but his wake remained. A warning of how quickly belief, when weaponized, can become bloodshed. In the end, Vance Boelter didn't start a revolution. He started a reckoning. So, what do you think? Was Vance Boelter a delusional, or was he just a symptom of something darker in the system? Let me know your theories down below. If you liked this story, I promise the next one is even crazier. Subscribe, hit that bell icon, and I'll see you in the next twisted case.